Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Episode 4. We're at game week. Tigers start off against Mississippi State next week and then either have Purdue or Liberty. We're going to dive into that a little bit. We're also going to talk a little bit today about the top 4, at least in my list, the Let It Fly top 4. And we will get into depth about all those players, the coaches, coaching staff. We're going to talk about the whole thing. But I'm ready for that part to get over with because we're at season now. I'm fired up about it. Happy to have my man Faxon Childress with us, as always. And, of course, NBA draft was last night. We're going to talk about that just briefly, not too much. 8 ACC players taken, not a dookie in the first round. I thought I was in the twilight zone for a second. Good episode today. We're excited about it. Faxon, we about ready to go, big guy?
Yeah, I'm coming out in 1 sec. Okay. Let's get on camera. And, yeah, we're going to have a great show tonight.
We're going to have a good show today. We're going to go ahead and start off with number 4 on the Let It Fly preseason rankings, and that, Faxon, is North Carolina.
Yes, and North Carolina at number 4 in the ACC to start the season. Got a lot of intriguing players and pieces on the team. Coming off of their worst season, I would say, in the last decade. It was a really disappointing season for the Tar Heels. There was a lot of tension. Cole Anthony, shot really inefficiently, but to his credit, did not have a great supporting cast. He actually went to the Orlando Magic 15th overall in the draft last year. So Tar Heels do have some good returning talent, though, and we're going to talk about that now.
Absolutely. And not only do they have that, they have the number 1 recruiting class in the country coming in, headed off by Caleb Love, freshman, 6'3", 190 pounds from St. Louis, Missouri, a dynamic playmaker that Tar Heels are going to play at the point guard position. Somebody, hopefully, that Roy Williams can convince to throw the ball up, unlike Cole Anthony. Tar Heel offense, and Roy Williams in particular, they thrive offensively when it comes to changing sides of the floor in their offense. Second side offense is huge, Faxon, and Caleb Love hopefully will be able to attack in more multi-dimensional ways than Cole Anthony was last year.
Yes, and Love is a very talented scorer, as you were talking about. Put up about 26 a game last year in high school. He's going to be big on the glass, too. At 6'3", 190, you might not think he's going to be a great rebounder. Does crash the defensive glass really hard. Going to be looking to get that ball to him in transition, get the ball moving. I think that he's going to be a big piece this year. And Roy Williams, I feel like we'll enjoy him more than Cole Anthony as far as a play style perspective goes.
And let's not go crazy here. Cole Anthony's a good player. Got drafted 15th, but let's just take into account his style of play didn't necessarily fit. I feel like Caleb Love's style of play might be a little bit more conducive to what the Tar Heels like to do offensively. He's a good catch-and-shoot guy from 3. He can also attack the glass, and he's supremely athletic. Just another McDonald's All-American to the bunch for the Heels. I feel like he's going to be a major cog into why the Heels are going to jump up back to the top of the ACC this season. We've also talked a little bit about Garrison Brooks. Garrison Brooks, my pick for ACC Player of the Year preseason. Excellent rebounder. And Faxon, I watched them play Duke and North Carolina a couple of days ago. His progression from his freshman year to his sophomore year to the end of his junior year is unbelievably noticeable. He's a big rebound guy, and towards the end of last year, he began to catch the ball out in the mid post and be able to attack with his right hand towards the middle of the lane. I really like his progression as a player, and he's looking to add some depth to his jump shooting, trying to get a little bit further out to the three-point line, Faxon.
Yeah, and he did shoot around 30% on limited attempts from 3 last year. It's going to be interesting to see. There's been a lot of time off for these collegiate athletes. A lot of them have been in the lab lately, working on their jump shot, working on their game. So it's going to be interesting to see if Brooks can take that next progression into being maybe an NBA-type guy that can shoot out of the mid-post, shoot off the elbow, and maybe even extend it out to the three-point line. It should be exciting to watch. He's a great player.
And he's a very good athlete. I think that's an underrated part of his game is he's a big body, very good athlete, and he's able to – the thing that shocked me is towards the end of last season, a lot of teams were jumping over some of these baseline screens that the Tar Heels like to set, and he was having to get that ball 15, 16, 17 feet out from the paint. And he was still able to make things happen, even at Cameron Indoor in the last game of the season. I really like his progression. I really like the way the Tar Heels, they're going to continue to crash the offensive glass. Him and my man Armando Bacot, 6'10", 240 out of Virginia, a guy who averaged 9 points and 8 rebounds a year ago from Virginia. I think I already said that, but I'm just going to say it again. Big body, double-double threat every night, and he's just a perfect complement.
Yeah, and Bacot's a great player to play off of Brooks, as you were saying, and they're really going to be a force inside this year when you look at them and you add guys like Love and Harris, who you're about to talk about. This is a lot more complete North Carolina team than last year. There's a lot more just natural talent when you look at the roster and go position by position. They're adding a lot of talented freshmen, like we said, and their best players coming back. So, and I would say best 2 players in Brooks and Bacot. So this is going to be a bounce back year for the Tar Heels for sure. I think that's why you have them in their top 4. I think they could go even higher than 4, honestly.
And I think they could drop just as much.
Yeah.
I mean, they only have 3 upperclassmen, which is Playtech, Brooks, and there's 1 more. But this is not an extraordinarily old team. It's a lot of young guns. and I feel like they're going to be a pretty good team. Anthony Harris is going to be a key cog as well. Somebody who was hurt the majority of last year, but he shot a high clip from three, and he brings an extra dimension to this Tar Heel team with his defense, his jump shooting, and he's just another guy that they're going to be able to run things through, Faxon.
Yeah, and Harris, like you said, redshirt freshman. It's going to be interesting to see how they use him this year in the Roy Williams offense. It's going to be to see how he coincides with Caleb Love in that backcourt. It's really interesting because I feel like North Carolina has that. They're a low floor, high ceiling team, if that makes sense. Their floor, we saw last year what it was. Their floor, they can hit rock bottom, but I think their floor this year is probably 8th in the ACC. But I think if things pan out the way they want them to, they could go as high as 2nd or 3rd.
I think that's an excellent point. But Anthony Harris, I mean, he does have some explosive ability to him, including he had 14 points against UCLA at home and scored 8 in a row against the team to propel them to a win early in the season before he got hurt. Look, this is a team, they're young. Guard play is going to be key. R.J. Davis, a freshman out of New York, he's going to have to come in and run the offense as well, and they're going to be able to slide Love to the two-guard some. Andrew Platek, another senior, he's going to have to be a settle-down guy for the Tar Heels because it's a lot of youth, and while I have them at 4, it could easily be 7, 8, like you said, Fax, and I really like this team. I think we had a question last week that I didn't get to.
Yes, let me pull that up real quick. It is about Caleb Love. The question came from Mr. David Hardwick, and he said, Love is a solid scorer from 3 and off the dribble, sharp as a monster in the paint. How does Clemson deal with that 1-2 punch in their matchup?
Well, more than anything, you have to limit ball reversal. If you're able to do that and you're Clemson, you're able to stall a lot of their offense. They do have some options coming back to the same side, and when I say same side, the ball comes from the right wing to the top, and they go back to the right wing. But Carolina is much better when that ball swings from side to side on the floor. If you're able to do that and you have to box out, Garrison Brooks is a phenomenal rebounder. If you're able to do that, Tigers are going to have a shot. And you always have to shoot the ball well. I think that's the big portion of that. Faxon.
Yes, and we saw the Tigers obviously get their first win in Chapel Hill in forever last year. I think the Clemson can beat this North Carolina team this year, but it's going to be difficult. Like you were saying, North Carolina's going to be swinging the ball side to side. Tigers need to make 7 to 8 threes to win that game, in my opinion.
I think the magic number is 9.
9?
Yeah, I really do. I think you hit 9 up at Carolina, you give yourself a chance at least to keep it close because, I mean, there's some other things that are going on up there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a tough place to play. Been there, done that. Number 3, I got the Seminoles. Coming out for ACC championship season, Leonard Hamilton does a fantastic job letting his guys play, and, man, they're deep. They have all this talent. Anthony Polite's going to have a monster year. He's a preseason all-defensive player. For me, he's a switch guy. He can guard either Chris Likes or he can guard some of these bigger 4-men in the league. This is a guy who's going to have a monster year, especially with Trent Forrest leaving, especially with Devin Vassell leaving. He's somebody that's going to have a much larger role, and he's going to be able to really pressure opposing guards, which is what he excels at, Faxon.
And you look at Polite and you look at his stats last year, and they might not jump off the page at you, but like you said, he's going to have a much increased role this year. It's kind of his team to take over. He's one of the more experienced guys on the team. Him, obviously, we're going to talk about MJ Walker and Osborne are kind of the three horsemen that are going to lead this team, and I would look to him to get in that 10-12 PPG range this year, and he can add probably 5 boards as well with that. So he's going to be a great role player for the Seminoles.
Yeah, an excellent on-ball defender, and he's so versatile. A lot of people talk about offensive versatility, and I got kind of tired of the word versatile last night watching the draft because I feel like it's a verbal filler for all these guys getting drafted. But a versatile defender can guard 1 through 4 against most teams. 6'6", 215 pounds, a great defender. This guy right here, Scottie Barnes, we got into detail a little bit last week. It's my freshman of the year coming into the season. Kind of a do-it-all player. Is his jump shot need work? Sure, but he's going to play the point for the Seminoles. That's 6'9", 227. He's going to be able to pressure the ball. They're going to be able to switch. And he's the most Florida State player Florida State's ever had. Leonard Hamilton, he definitely has a type. It's long, it's athletic, it's switchable, it's a team-first type of dude. Unlimited energy guy from the freshman out of Montverde Academy.
And yes, Barnes is an extremely impressive player. This is 100% going to be an NBA guy one day. He just kind of needs to find a position. As you said, you think that he's going to be playing point guard for the Seminoles this year. I would agree with that. This guy's going to be a nightmare on defense for anyone that comes up against him. It's as simple as that because, as you were talking about, he can switch on every position on the court. He's fast enough to guard the 1, and he's big enough to guard down to the 4 and 5. And he's long enough to where he can get up and he can come back on rotations and block shots, too, on the short side. So, great player in Scottie Barnes for sure.
Yeah, he's going to overwhelm a lot of players. A really talented kid, freshman of the year in my
I don't think he's going to look like a freshman out there either. I mean, you see a lot of times, especially in the ACC, these point guards, they look frazzled early in the year. I don't think that's going to be the case with Barnes. I think that he's already ready to play in the ACC.
Well, his size is just so much bigger than any point guard he's going to face. I mean, if you have Alamir Dawes matched up against him, and Alamir's a little slight of frame, it's going to look a little different now, and he's going to have his hands full. His size is going to help him out at the point guard position. He's going to be able to hold people off. He's going to be able to initiate kind of their offense. They don't run a ton of stuff. It's a lot of ball movements, a lot of talent. He's going to fit in perfect. Malik Osborne is kind of the do-it-all forward for the Seminoles, somebody who's been able to shoot pretty well, shot 36% from three a year ago. He's the quintessential role player for this team. Does he demand the ball? Not necessarily. Is he a beast on the boards? Absolutely. Somebody who could switch multiple positions, and somebody who's been very good for the Seminoles during his career. A transfer from Rice a couple of years ago, Faxon.
And yes, once again, this is another guy who his stats last year aren't going to jump off the page, but increased role this year. Look for him to be in that, once again, that 10-point per game range, maybe add 5-6 boards. I mean, he had 5 boards last year, so would assume he's going to get more minutes this year, even though Hamilton switches everyone in and out constantly. Great player, size, super versatile. I mean, this Florida State team is a nightmare to go up against. And just looking at this roster, especially last year, I mean, Patrick Robinson went number 4 in the draft. I mean, you're looking Vassell, you're looking Forrest. I don't know how Clemson beat this team. This team was so good last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing that you're going to get when you play against Florida State. They're going to pressure the ball, and they're not going to help a whole lot. Why do they not have to help a whole lot? Because a lot of people have a hard time getting past this guy. A lot of people have a hard time getting past this guy. You have one guy. Alamir Dawes could do it last year. You have one guy who's able to break that defense down. They don't rotate extremely well because they're so athletic. They're so big. They rely on that athleticism. It's not somebody who's going to slide over and take charges. You're going to have to shoot over some trees in there. And guys who are able to finish around the rim, you can beat the Seminoles. This is a good team. MJ Walker, second-team preseason All-ACC player in the Let It Fly magazine. You want to hold that up for me, Faxon, real quick? The Let It Fly magazine?
We got the Let It Fly magazine right here. You can get yours at letitflywithtO.com.
That's right.
I've got the website down now, so I feel like a world beater. But yeah, you can get this. You can get your ACC preseason stats. Got the schedules in there now, predictions from you, and definitely worth the buy.
All the information you'll need going into the season. But MJ Walker, second-team All-Conference in the book and here on the screen. An excellent player. Needs to be a little bit more efficient from the field. Doesn't shoot great percentages, but he's somebody who's a go-to player in that offense and somebody that Leonard Hamilton likes to call his number a lot. So anytime the Seminoles call something in the half court, it's going to Walker to let him create. Into the shot clock, it's going to Walker. He's somebody that's going to get ample opportunity this season, and going into his senior year, he knows it's money time, Faxon.
Yeah, and like you said, 37% from the field last year is not ideal, but Walker is a very talented scorer. Not going to do a lot on the boards, not going to do a lot passing out of that, but isolation, you need a bucket, like you said, late in the shot clock, you're going to go to MJ Walker. Look for him to be 15 points per game this year, I would say minimum.
Absolutely. I'm in total agreement, and I think he's going to shoot the ball better. Number 2. We have the Blue Devils. I almost had to ground my son the other day because he said he wanted to pretend to be a Duke fan. I'm not about this. Can't do that right now. Duke is going to be good, though. They got some players returning, including Wendell Moore Jr. and Matthew Hurt, and they got some really good freshmen coming in. And one role player that I don't think gets enough credit for what he does. But we're going to start out Wendell Moore, 6'5", 216-pound sophomore from North Carolina. A really versatile. I'm going to say versatile. I feel like I said that a billion times yesterday when I was watching the draft. But he is that. With good size, ball handling ability, he's going to be able to shoot the ball better this year. If he's able to start knocking down some shots for the Blue Devils, he's going to have a heck of a year because not a whole lot of people can stay in front of him on the dribble drives, Faxon.
Yeah, and it was a weird season for Wendell last year. He came in, it was thought that probably he was going to get around 15 points per game. It's in that 7 to 8 point per game range. Shot the ball 21% from 3. That's got to get better this year, and I think it will. I think he'll be able to get some better looks this year. He'll have some more players creating for him. Obviously, you lose Trey Jones to the NBA last night. That's going to hurt the Blue Devils, but this is still a premier team in the ACC with so much talent you can't even wrap your head around.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And he's somebody, he reminds me, his movements, the way he handles the ball, a little bit like Andre Iguodala. He's got that kind of body. He's a big, strong kid. He's going to be able to post. He's going to be able to guard in the post. He's going to be able to get out in the passing lanes. He excels in transition. And if they're able to turn defense into offense, Duke should be pretty good this year. This guy right here, we detailed a little bit last week, Jalen Johnson, first-team preseason All-ACC player. Really, quote-unquote, versatile. I keep going back to versatile. Can do a lot of things with the ball. Not a great shooter, but he's going to be somebody that brings the ball up the court for him, initiates offense, and he's going to be able to score around the rim with his elite athleticism, Faxon.
Yeah, this guy's ridiculous. I mean, he put up 25 and 11 last year in high school, tore up the AAU circuit, and Jalen Johnson, highly touted recruit, obviously. That's all they get at Duke. It's always a highly touted recruit. So it really should be interesting to see what he can provide this year.
Yeah. So next we have Matthew Hurt. If you could grab his stats real quick. I didn't write them down.
Yeah, I will grab Matthew Hurt's stats. He averaged 10 points a game last year, around 4 boards, and he shot 48% from the field, 39% from 3.
Yeah, so he's projected as a high lottery pick. I'm not sold on Matthew Hurt. I thought he hurt more than he helped, quite frankly. He's a good shooter from outside. He shot above 40% from 3, correct?
Around that 39 range.
So 39% from 3. He is a big. He's, 6'9", 235. He might be a hair taller, but he's got a little Cherokee Parks in his game. He's not overly good with the ball on the perimeter, handling it. Not a great passer. He can shoot it. Like, let's not get this twisted. But he's not somebody that's going to get out there and defend. He really struggled guarding anybody. As soon as he was a switch out, guys attacked him immediately.
And I remember last year in that Clemson game, total non-factor. Like, legitimate total non-factor. I think he didn't foul out of the game. That was Cassius, but he rode the pine the majority of that game in favor of Javin DeLaurier because, like you said, Clemson went out in that pick and roll, and Alamir Dawes hunted him constantly from the start of the game, and he went right to the bench with 2 quick fouls. Hardly ever came back out there. He's an interesting player, and he's really talented on offense. When you can get him into those spots, he's going to knock down those shots. But his foot speed concerns me on defense and his lateral quickness because, like you said, he's really lanky and really slow.
Yeah, absolutely. And another reason he didn't get to play a whole lot is because he was having to guard Tevin Mack on the offensive end. It's somebody that you're going to have to hide a little bit. And with the 4 position being as good as it is in conference, Matthew Hurt's going to struggle this year. If he improves his foot speed, if he's able to guard the pick and roll a little bit better, look for him to have a good year. Jordan Goldwire, 6'2" senior. I put him on there. His numbers don't jump off the page at you. He's somebody who does all the dirty work. He's a senior from Atlanta, Georgia. He's not somebody who's going to blow you away with assist numbers. He's not somebody who's going to blow you away with his points per game. But he is somebody who's going to get in the other team's best player's grill. He's going to throw a little elbow every now and then. He's going to get a little chippy. And the value of a player like that on a team like Duke with a bunch of young kids, he's somebody who's going to be able to settle them down, and he's somebody who's going to be able to basically bring the defensive intensity from the start in every game this season.
Yeah, and I was actually blessed enough to watch Jordan Goldwire play in high school. He played for Norcross High School. This guy is just tenacious on defense, like you said. He's the best on-ball defender, frankly, that I've seen in a while in the ACC. He's going to get down. He's going to get dirty. And actually shot the 3-ball pretty well last year. A lot of those on catch-and-shoot attempts, around 35%. So if he can even take that next step up, get to 37, 38, he's like the perfect role player for any team in contention.
The perfect complement. He's somebody who's going to be able to space the floor for those other guys. ACC champs, Virginia, preseason hardware. Somebody get them a trophy. You don't get it preseason, but I'm picking them for the end of the year. Because, one, Tony Bennett's style of play leads to wins. It doesn't matter how talented you are. Now the Cavs have the talent. Started with this guy, Sam Hauser. Transfer from Marquette. We talked a little bit about him last week. Another first-team All-ACC player. A lot of people's pick for Player of the Year. Somebody who's a career 40% three-point shooter at his time at Marquette. And he brings an added element to a Virginia offense that really struggled last year, Faxon.
Yeah, and we saw Virginia play. I know they play a lot of games in the 40s and 50s typically. Last year was just disgusting. There were so many games in the 40s from that Virginia offense, and the problem was they didn't have that go-to guy when they needed a bucket. When everyone else was cold, they didn't have that go-to guy to get a bucket. That problem was completely solved. 15 points a game at Marquette, around 47% from the field, 40 from 3, and this is the definition of getting a bucket. He can get hot in an instant. Anytime in an isolation situation, he's going to be able to get it, and Tony Bennett's going to be able to scheme him some open looks too, so he would be my pick for the preseason player of the year.
And he's somebody who's going to average 15 points a game in an offense that's the slowest in the country. That means, one, you're amazingly efficient, and two, you're able to stay on the floor and not foul in their defensive scheme as well. Sam Hauser's a heck of a player. This guy is too. Kihei Clark, second-team preseason All-ACC team, according to the media poll. This is somebody who's really undervalued, in my opinion. A lot of people know he's good, but 11 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 177 assists is pretty good. Yeah, he's listed at 5'9". I think that's generous.
And when you take into account that he shoots pretty efficiently from beyond the arc too, he can space the floor at around 38% from 3. Would like to see him get those efficiency numbers up and more inside the paint. Kind of struggled last year offensively in that mid-range game. Let's look for him to take that next stride next year, but I mean, this guy's incredible. He's the coach's dream to have as your point guard because he's going to play defense and he's going to play super smart. He's going to move the ball around and get people open.
And you don't have to worry about him getting in foul trouble either. He averaged over 38 minutes a game, top minute getter in the conference, somebody that's extremely solid. He knows Tony Bennett's offense, and he has complete trust in him. Had an excellent year last year. This guy right here is one of my favorite players in conference. Jay Huff, 7'1", 240 pounds. He looks like he's 40. He plays like he's 42. He's married with 3 kids, I think. I couldn't tell you. This guy right here is going to shoot above 40% at 7'1" and really be able to facilitate things for the offense. Just another shooter, a guy who had a pretty good year last year, Faxon. If you could tell me his stats, because I can't quite remember exactly what he shot, but he's an extremely talented player.
Yeah, last year he had around 8 points, 6 rebounds, and he shot around 36% from 3, 58% from the field, so really efficient, especially when you consider his size. But I think, like you said, he could even take that next step up this year. He's going to be getting more open looks when you have more attention on Sam Hauser.
Absolutely. And he's not somebody that's going to blow you away off the ball. He did have a dunk a couple of years ago against Clemson that was pretty doggone impressive. Jay Huff's an NBA player if he finds the right fit. He's going to struggle with some athletes that can really get to the rim, but he's somebody who's going to be able to stretch the floor, pick and pop for somebody that, like a Kihei Clark, who's able to get in that lane and pitch back. Good player. Virginia's lucky to have this gentleman. Casey Marcel had a terrible year last year, and I want to emphasize it was a terrible year. He was a highly touted freshman coming into Virginia, and his numbers just didn't follow. Could you read off his numbers, please, Faxon?
Yeah, his numbers, and once again, using the Let It Fly with T.O. magazine, you can get it at letitflyatto.com. Kind of a shameless plug there for you.
Shameless.
But Marcel, 4 points a game last year, 27% from the field, 17% from 3. Disastrous year offensively for him.
And that's not him. I'm telling you, with an added shooter on the floor, Hauser's going to affect Marcel more than people realize. This is a player who's capable defensively. That's the reason he was able to get big minutes last season. He's going to start for the Who's, and I'd be shocked if he's not in that mid-30s range. Kind of a guy that can just get the momentum rolling. He needed it after a tough freshman year, Faxon.
Yeah, and let's look for him. I mean, he's obviously extremely talented, as you said. He's top 50 recruit in the country. Virginia was coming in. Everyone expected this guy to be great last year, and he was kind of expected to be more of a premier scorer. I think, like you said, he'll benefit from Hauser being on the floor. He'll get more open looks. Hopefully he can have a great year defensively, too. I mean, everyone does for Tony Bennett, but it should be interesting to see what he can provide this year if he can take that next step.
Yeah, the thing that amazes me with Tony Bennett is he plays all of his guys above 35 minutes. These guys are going to have ample opportunity. You got Cody Statman that's going to come in off the bench. You got all these guys. All 4 of these guys are 40% three-point shooters or capable of being that. I'm even including this guy. A lot of people kind of fell off on it, but a high-level scorer, he's going to be able to knock it down. He's got a good-looking shot. It's just going to take some time, Faxon. Do you have any differences in your top 4 than my top 4?
No, I would have the same top 4 as you. Yeah. I really would. I think this is an accurate top 4. I might, when you look at this list in general, I think I would have Clemson over Miami, and I probably, to be honest, I would have Pitt a little higher, but the rest of it, I think I'm pretty with you on that.
Right. So you think Pitt's better?
I think Pitt is better than Boston College.
Huh.
Yeah, and I
think Boston College is going to surprise some people.
You do?
Yeah, because they can shoot it.
That schedule the
schedule
is difficult. That would be the only reason I think that Pitt would end with a better record than Boston College. Is that schedule is it's a nightmare, especially at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you listening only, but for those of you watching, that's the entire list of them. That's everybody. I'm happy this part's over because season's right around the corner. We're coming. Just to rehash, for those of you strictly listening, Wake Forest at 15, Pitt, Boston College, 12 is Notre Dame, 11 NC State, 10 Virginia Tech, Syracuse at 9, Georgia Tech 8, Clemson 7, Miami at 6, Louisville, Carolina, Florida State, Duke, and Virginia.
That's a really good list.
It's a good list.
Yeah.
Unless
ACC
there's
is
major
really
injury.
deep this year. The ACC is really deep.
Yeah, and the biggest switch between me and the rest of the media, NC State. I'm telling you, that was confusing.
They're way too bullish on them, especially for someone who lost their best player.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one.
It's confusing because any team that loses their best player, and like you said, we talked about this, he was their entire team at points last year. He really was.
Yeah. It's tough because whenever there was something at the end of the shot clock, Markel Johnson was the guy that was fixing it for the Wolfpack. That's going to be tough to replace. Cam Hayes, a freshman, he's going to be able to have his chance, but I think it's going to be really difficult. Those slides right there, they were brought to you by East Park Printing. Call Randy Dempsey. That's my main guy. He's the one who did this one. We've plugged it enough.
Yeah.
I think we've plugged it enough. I feel weird plugging it. But if I was going to plug it, I would say coupon code 10%, QUALK. Type in QUALK, Q-U-A-L-K. Do that, get 10% off. It's worth the buy. Right at $9 after that, so do that. NBA draft was last night, Faxon.
The NBA draft was last night.
There were some interesting things that happened. I was a little bit shocked. Is there anything in particular that shocked you? That
shocked me? I would say that, I don't know if there was anything that really shocked me, in all honesty.
Really?
I would say Patrick Williams going at 4 to Chicago really shocked me, ACC guy. I expected them to kind of move back and target him, but I did not expect them to take him at 4.
Apparently he interviewed fantastic. But just to kind of rehash the NBA draft, we're not going to talk about this long because this is a college show. This isn't necessarily an NBA show. But the top 3 picks, Edwards, Wiseman, and Ball. That was an interesting one. Charlotte gets LaMelo Ball. I'm going to go up to Charlotte and watch a game. Really? I think like he's that exciting of a player. And, of course, you get all the fanfare. You get all the brouhaha with LeVar, his dad. But he's an unbelievable talent, 6'7" point guard who's able to handle the ball, an elite passer. I think he's going to be really good in the NBA, especially when the floor is spaced out so much more than it was in Australia, per se. Anthony Edwards is interesting. Timberwolves aren't chock full of guys that play hard all the time. And for somebody who's come out in the last week and says, hey, I would rather be a rapper. I'd rather be a football player. That's an interesting point because, one, you already have D'Angelo Russell, who doesn't necessarily play hard all the time, and you have Karl Anthony Towns, who's an issue when it comes to effort. And it's been that way consistently. Why do you think Jimmy Butler didn't get along with him?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one for me. How about 8 ACC players going and not a Dookie in the first round?
It was really weird to not see a Duke player go in the first round. I thought Trey would sneak in at the end of the first round, in all honesty, and he didn't. So it was kind of weird because you're used to, like, had Tatum up there a couple years ago, and then Grayson Allen, we even went in the first round. There's always a Duke guy up there, and there wasn't, like, that premier Duke guy. I mean, Zion, they had 3 in the top 10 last year with Zion, Reddish, and Barrett. So
well, it wasn't the same team. They were still good. They were a good collegiate team, but, like, Vernon Carey didn't fit. He fits the college game, doesn't necessarily fit the NBA game. But how about the change of power in the ACC? It's kind of the big point here. You have 2 Florida State Seminoles, Patrick Williams and Devin Vassell, both selected in the lottery. Patrick Williams, obviously a surprise, but apparently he killed it in interviews. They loved his playmaking ability.
He's very good.
Oh, he's very good. And he showed a lot more in those workouts than I think they knew he was capable of.
It was honestly interesting for them just fit-wise, and I understand he's a great player. They already have Wendell Carter. And they already have Lauri Markkanen. So that front court is now stocked full of talent, and it's going to be interesting to see if one of them maybe gets moved or if they're content with Williams being kind of that 6-man sort of guy off the bench, because there's not enough positions to fill every single one of those players to get consistent minutes.
Well, I think they're going to play him at the 3. So if you
they're
look
going to play
at
Williams at the 3.
Yeah, he is a 3. He just slid over to the 4 sometimes for the Seminoles last year. But
that's a big lineup.
Yeah, big lineup. So you're going to go Kobe White, score, Zach LaVine, score, and then Patrick Williams, who can kind of do everything.
Yeah.
That's a really good fit. It's somebody who's not ball dominant. And after those first 3 picks, those were the definites. After that, you're looking for fit. This was an extremely strong draft when it came to top-end talent outside those top 3, and even they had holes. So it was a little bit worrisome on that. The guy that we've been dogging since this thing started, Cole Anthony, goes 15 to the Magic. Somebody
I think that's a good fit.
Could not have found a better place to go.
Yeah.
I'll let you elaborate a little bit.
That's a good fit because they have spacing galore in Orlando. It's literally, the floor is going to be so spaced out for Cole. Vucevic is an all-star player at center. I'm super high on him personally. Extremely talented. He had a great playoff series against Milwaukee last year. It's going to be interesting to see if they hang on to Aaron Gordon, but he can space the floor out too. And he doesn't have a lot of pressure on him going to Orlando. They're kind of a middle-of-the-road team. They're in NBA purgatory is what I like to say. They're always that 7 or 8 seed, and they never get a top draft pick. So there's not going to be a lot of pressure on him. And I think he can come off the bench and be a 6-man this year. So I'm assuming they'll give the starting minutes to Marcel, who's in year 3 now. He can come off the 6-man. I think he's going to get 25 minutes a game year 1. I really do.
I don't see any reason why he can't average anywhere from 12 to 14.
I think he will.
Because he's not responsible for getting everybody involved anymore.
And he'll be playing against second units, too. You got to think that he'll be coming into the game playing against second units. And I think he can just be that scoring spark off the bench. Doesn't have to shoot super efficiently to impress people. He's just kind of got to... Shot selection has to be decent, and he got to cut down on the turnovers, and he'll be good.
Well, another thing, too, that kind of to compound on that point, like, in the NBA, that game is much more spread out. You already said they have great spacing, and they do. He's not going to get in trouble over dribbling in the NBA as much as he did in college. Because in the college game, it's tough. So he's going to be able to use that pick and roll.
And he's got talent around him, too, now. Like, last year, that supporting cast was just tragic. They had some talent, but that was not a great fit because they didn't have a lot of shooters for him to kind of move the ball around. This year, he's got shooting galore. He'll be coming and he'll be feasting against these second-unit bench guards. A lot of them are bad defensively in the NBA because people look for guys like Cole Anthony that are going to come in and give a scoring punch. So I think this was a a good fit and a good draft pick.
It couldn't have been a more perfect fit. Do you know who Vinny the Microwave Johnson is?
I do. I do know who Vinny Johnson is.
Yeah. There you go. You're up on your history. That's pretty good. That's who I compare him to. Somebody's going to come in. He's going to come off the bench. I think the first year especially, he's going to be able to Jamal Crawford it a little bit. He's going to come in. He's going to be aggressive off the dribble. He's going to try to score. He's not going to be relied on to do this too much or do that. Like he's somebody who's going to he's one-track minded.
And Clifford's offense is pretty lax too when it comes to systems. They don't run a ton of specific stuff, so hopefully he can get some minutes with Vucevic. I would love to see them in like two-man game, pick and roll, pick and pop. I feel like that could be a good scoring duo.
Do you have a couple of guys that you think will outperform their draft?
Oh, I think Onyeka to the Hawks I think he was drafted too low. I think he's going to be one of the best players of this draft just as far as a winning perspective goes. I think he's a winning basketball player. You talked about how Patrick Williams kind of does it all on the wing. Onyeka does it all at center, in my opinion. This guy is such a good shot blocker. Almost 3 blocks a game last year. Added 16 points, 9 boards. He's going to just be a menace around the paint. He doesn't do too much. He's not going to force up shots. He doesn't need the ball to succeed. He's just going to play defense. He's going to rebound, and he's going to play into his role. And I think they might try and move Capella now in Atlanta.
It makes sense. Yeah. I would assume they would, but the Hawks are going to start to enter Phoenix Suns territory as far as the Chris Paul trade. Like, you got all these young pieces, and you just kind of got to let them figure it out. They've got John Collins at the 4. They've got Trae Young, who's a stud. And now they got Onyeka, who's going to be just a beast, just an excellent role player. Kind of a Clint Capella, but I think a little bit more explosive.
Yeah.
2 players that I think are going to outperform their number. Elijah Hughes from Syracuse.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's an excellent one-on-one scorer. He's a high-percentage three-point shooter, and he's got good size. They list him at 6'7". I think that's generous. That's a big old boy, and he's going to be able to create off the dribble. If he doesn't play minutes for the Utah Jazz this year, look for him to average like 35 in the D-League because he is a problem off the dribble.
And I remember playing against Clemson. It just seemed like every time that guy was coming down and giving our perimeter defenders to work. I mean, he's an incredible individual scorer, and I think he might see some minutes next year, depending on how some of those contract situations unfold in Utah. They don't have a ton of wing depth there, so it should be interesting to see how that unfolds. I think one of the Bogdanoviches might leave, and Royce O'Neal I don't think is going to stay, so I think he could see some minutes.
Yeah, I agree with you. Can he guard? That's always the biggest question coming out of Syracuse. So these guys are always talented offensively.
Because they play zone.
Absolutely.
They don't know how to play man.
That's right. But he did transfer.
Yeah.
He's a transfer from East Carolina. So they did play.
He was only in that zone for like, what, 2 years?
2 years.
Yeah.
So he does have some basic man-to-man concepts, I would say, at the collegiate level. But it takes time, just as well with anybody. It took Melo 15 years. And then he became serviceable, especially help side. Another one. Saben Lee from Vanderbilt, somebody who was a second-team All-SEC player, a little bit on the short side, 6'3", but he's got like a 6'10" wingspan. I feel like Jay Billis said wingspan a billion times yesterday, but he's somebody that can go get a bucket and come off the bench for you. I feel like he's somebody that can do that. He was taken pretty low. I want to say that, let's see, Saben Lee, number 38 to the Pistons. I really like the way he plays. He can shoot it, he attacks the rim, and he really gets to the free throw line, which everybody knows the free throw is a ticket in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, and it seemed like the Pistons had 15 picks yesterday, or were always involved in a trade or something. They had a good draft in my opinion, but I definitely agree with all the points you made there. I feel like he's going to be a good player, and hopefully he'll be able to get some minutes on a bad team next year. They're going to be playing a lot of youth next year, I have a feeling. I think Blake Griffin might get shipped out of town, so maybe that'll open up some more minutes for him.
Yeah, I think Detroit's going to go with the youth movement. The second round of the draft is so funny, and I wanted to make this a point because sometimes, like for example, a couple of years ago when Dante Grantham didn't get drafted, if you slide anywhere past the middle of the second round, it's almost better not to get drafted. Why do I say that?
Because you have your pick.
You can pick your team. You can pick your fit. I think there's 55 undrafted players that ended up getting minutes last season in the NBA. And it's because you can pick your spots. You don't necessarily have to go exactly where the teams that drafted you. For example, Grant Riller, who got drafted by the Hornets, who could very well stick to that roster come playoff time if they were able to do that. But now he doesn't have the flexibility to go where he wants to. He can't pick where he would fit most or where he's most likely to make a roster. And then they hold your rights for 10 years. So it makes it really difficult. If you're going to be the back end of the second, I would almost rather go undrafted. I mean, it's great for your ego, but what about you? I mean, what would you think?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you because I feel like you might have a better chance of making your name stick in the league if you get to pick where you go and pick a place where they don't have maybe the best players at your position. You know you're going to be able to stick on a roster, like you said, whereas some people late in the second round might be stashing you with the express intent of playing you in the G League and trying to develop you for a couple of years. So it's an interesting dynamic. And I was really surprised that Miles Powell didn't get drafted out of Seton Hall. I think he's one of those guys like Hughes that can get you some points in a hurry. I saw he went to the Knicks today.
He did.
So he'll definitely make that roster.
That was a good pickup by them. It's such a weird thing because the European season's been going since the beginning, since normal time, which guys typically go over there in August. All these guys that went undrafted, now they're just kind of sitting on their hands. So D-League's going to be pretty good this year because all these players don't have the option of going back and forth when they go undrafted. This has been a difficult year for everybody. And, of course, when it comes to COVID, everything's shutting down. But if I don't get drafted and I thought I was going to, and I turned down some European offers, I'm pretty upset with myself. And there's nothing wrong with Europe. Some of these guys, like, why are you so apprehensive about going over there? It's a good life. I mean, you're taken care of at least some places. Like, I've got some bad stories, facts, when it comes to that. But, like,
playing basketball for a living.
Playing basketball for a living, you're in a foreign land, you got to figure things out. You know, a couple of them were favors, especially back into the second. Kenyon Martin Jr., who wasn't even a top 50 player in his class, he declares for the draft, and Kenyon Martin's son gets drafted, and I am blown away. He is a great athlete, but he's not a great player. I was kind of shocked about that.
Yeah, and in the second round, I think you're kind of picking on upside more than people, especially if you're a bad team. That's the thing. These bad teams, if you're in the second round, especially if I was a GM, I would just be picking upside. I'd be overlooking flaws. Like, if you're a bad team, there's no point in trying to pick a player that's going to come in and have instant impact because it's not going to give you anything. You might as well pick up a guy that, if you think you can make him a project and he can be a star down the road. So I would, if I was in the second round, I'd be picking for upside.
Yeah, it's a tough one because, like, Nico Mannion, who from Arizona, everybody thought he was going to be a lottery pick, and he slides down to 48 to the Warriors, and they have Kai Bowman there from Boston College, who was there a couple of years. Like, it's a hard situation.
It's weird too because they had that Michael Mulder come in last year, UDFA, and he actually played some really good minutes for the Warriors last year down the stretch. So they've got a lot of point guards on that roster, especially obviously you have Steph too. So that's it's going to be interesting to see if Mannion makes the roster or starts the year in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, it'll be. I think, you know, it's not a bad thing to go to the G League either.
Yeah.
I feel like it's looked down upon. It shouldn't be.
You get some usage.
Yeah, you get heavy usage.
You're getting heavy usage, especially if you're a draft pick in the G League. You're going to play every game, you know that, and you're going to get usage, and you're going to be made the priority, if that makes sense. Because
so hard.
You're trying to get your coaches and the main organization are trying to develop you into playing for your team one day.
It's so hard if you're not one of those guys too.
Really?
Because guys get sent down right away.
You were in the D League,
yeah,
correct?
I played in the D League alongside like Andrew Harrison, who played at Kentucky, and then alongside Perry Jones from Baylor and some of those guys. Like, it's difficult because like Russ Smith would come down like 30 minutes before game time, and it makes it so hard to like get ready to play and do all those things. Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough gig. But for the guys who have been drafted and who are able to go down and get 35 minutes or something right away without even practicing, it's a great deal. So everybody in the NBA, go ahead.
What would you prefer? Did you prefer playing in Europe to the D League?
I wanted to give the D League a shot.
Yeah.
Because I was 28. I just came off an MVP season. I was thinking, you know, if I'm going to make it, now's the time. I'm still healthy. I've been fairly lucky when it comes to that, and I shot the ball extremely well the year before, so I was thinking I was going to give myself a shot. But after that experience, because it was so difficult, I didn't know what I was getting into. A lot of people didn't know what they were getting into. And I show up, and I would get in for 30 seconds. If I made it, I got to stay in for another minute. If I missed it, I was yanked. So
really?
Yeah, it's really hard, and your percentages suffer. So if anybody's watching and they want to see like my percentages in the G League, it wasn't because I'm a bad shooter. It was like in the teens, because like you're going in for a second in the third quarter. If you make it, you stay in. It's really difficult.
So you have zero opportunity to kind of like get a rhythm or get a shot.
There is no rhythm.
Yeah.
Like I have so much respect for like Mike Miller and Sam. Played at Miami? Jones. James Jones. James Jones, yeah, who comes in, is able to come in for 30 seconds, shoot two threes, and then go right back to the bench. Like, that's a pro. And those are non-rhythm guys, and they're able to do it. I wasn't able to do it. I'm more of a rhythm guy. Like, I have to be part of it for a couple of minutes before I get my first shot up. It was a difficult situation. Enough about me.
Yeah.
Clemson plays this week. We're getting close.
6 days.
6 days. Mississippi State, 8:30?
8:30 on CBS Sports Network, I think, is the time in the television program slotted for that game, and I'm personally very excited. Very excited.
I am crossing my fingers. There's no hiccups. I am excited about the game, but after first glance, I thought Mississippi State was going to be a much tougher test. This is a game that the Tigers have to win. Mississippi State Bulldogs lost 4 of their top scorers a season ago, 2 of which were drafted last night, but they do have some athleticism, and Ben Howland, formerly of UCLA, formerly of Pitt, is a heck of a coach, and he finds a way to get superior athletes down to Starksville, and evidenced no more by Iverson Molinar, 6'3", 190. an okay shooter, not a big volume guy last season, but he's going to have a much bigger role this year. This is somebody that the Tigers are going to have to keep at bay on defense, or you're going to have to not turn the ball over because that's where he excels. And both him and DJ Stewart are drive-first guys. DJ Stewart's a supreme athlete who really likes to put his head down with that left hand and get to the cup. I like both of these players, Faxon.
Yeah, and Clemson, as you said, need to keep the turnovers at a minimum. Can't let these guys get out and run. This should be an interesting game. I'm really excited to just see how Clemson matches up and what the rotations are looking like. But as you said, Stewart and Molinar, two really good players. You're going to go over to the right in a second and talk about, is it Ado or is it Ado?
Abdul Ado.
Abdul Ado. And he wasn't a big factor last year, but this year he's kind of getting thrusted into a starting role. So you can go ahead and
well, I mean, he did start. I mean, he's a big-time defensive guy, but he's not a big offensive player. I think he started some games, but somebody –
He had some injuries, I think.
He really fits what Amir Sims is good at. He's going to, like, this is somebody on offense that the Tigers are going to have to move around a lot because he likes to park down there at the paint. With Amir, if he's able to shoot 40% again this year, Abdul Ado is going to have a really hard time with him, Faxon. So the Tigers need to move the ball, get him moving from side to side with ball screen actions and things of that nature. The more he moves, the better it is for the Tigers.
Yeah, and just once you're again, you were saying spacing is going to be a key in this game. Get him out of the paint. If the paint is clear for if Amir can pull him out, especially favorite thing that Amir does is when he pulls him out to the top of the key, someone cuts back door. It's typically John Newman. Amir can kind of hit that side pass, and Newman's in their back door. Look for that to be open. I'm really excited to see that.
Absolutely. And this is a team, they lost everybody. They have 3 upperclassmen. They're a little bit like Carolina. Upperclassmen. It's not a word. Upperclassmen. They have only 3 upperclassmen. And the Bulldogs, they're talented, don't get me wrong, but they're somebody who don't bring back a lot, and they were picked towards the bottom of the SEC. This is a game the Tigers need to win if you're going to be an NCAA tournament team. I hate to put the pressure on game 1, Faxon, but I don't really know what else to say here. They're just not supposed to be as good as what they were last season.
That's the reality of the situation. And Clemson had a much more difficult draw in their preseason tournament last year than this year. That TCU-Colorado draw last year in the preseason tournament is 20 times more difficult than this. So Clemson needs to get a win against Mississippi State. And I think we're going to go on and talk about the potential Purdue-Liberty matchup. I think Clemson would be favored to win that one as well.
Yeah, I think both teams. I'm going to go through a quick scouting report before we do that, though, because you can't put the cart before the horse. You got to get this game.
Yeah, you got to get this game.
Yeah. Iverson Molinar, you're looking at 15 minutes a game, 5.9 points per game. He's really somebody who likes to play off the pick and roll and keep his dribble alive. He's a supreme athlete, can finish well above the rim. He's just one of those guys. He shoots okay percentages. His jump shot's not great, but because there weren't very many, he was able to hit a high clip, I think right at 38%, if I'm not mistaken. Abdul Ado, what's the scouting report on him? He's a finisher. He's not going to wow you on offense. He's somebody who's going to be able to dunk all these dump downs from these lightning quick guards. He's going to finish around the rim and offensive rebound. He is an ultimate grit guy, somebody who's going to bang and put his elbows into people in the post. And Amir Sims, if he's able to have a good game, should be able to keep Ado at bay. But he is a load. That is a big man. Started against the Tigers a couple years ago up in Newark when the Tigers lost to Mississippi State. I want to say at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. This guy right here is probably their best returner. DJ Stewart, 6'6", 205 pounds, a really good player, athletic lefty, more of a driver, shot low percentages, right around 30% from 3. If you have a good closeout on him, he has a hard time. Closeout short, make him shoot it over the top, and you should be okay, especially on ball reversals. He likes to rip and go and get to the rim immediately. One more player I didn't put up here. Davon Smith, point guard from Grayson High School in Loganville, same place as Ian Schifflin. Tiger signee, a very good player, lightning fast with the ball, number 60 player in the country according to ESPN. Allen can get it done on the recruiting trail, and he shows it again. This worries me, to be honest with you, Faxon. Why? Tigers have struggled guarding the ball one-on-one last year in particular, and this team has it. Davon Smith, DJ Stewart attacks off the dribble. Iverson Molinar is extremely athletic. If they're able to keep those guards at bay, the Tigers should be okay.
Yeah, and there's not going to be killed a lot in the front court by these guys, as you were talking about, Ado. They don't have a lot of big offensive threats in the front court. It's really just keeping those guards at bay, and Clemson should be fine. I don't expect Mississippi State to get into the 70s. I think Clemson's going to keep them at 65 or under.
I think that's a good guess. Yeah. So I have 3 points to this game. You're going to make them play in the half court. Where does Mississippi State get most of their points? It's kick-aheads right off of defensive rebounds and steals. Even on makes, they're getting the ball in and they're pushing it full court, and they're kicking the ball up and they're attacking right away.
Those guards are fast.
They are blazingly fast. You've got to be able to get back and get in front and communicate on defense and load up on the ball side. What does that mean? You get all your players at least to the help line to prevent any extra drives, especially quick in transition. Secondly, make a dude get out on the paint, get him out of the paint, and make sure he has to guard side to side and on the perimeter. This guy can be a menace on the defensive team. If you let him do what he does, and that's park it down there on the paint, Tigers are going to have to draw him out, and you're going to be able to find cutters because Mississippi State, they do get a little top-heavy on defense. So some of these back doors are going to be open like you were talking about to John Newman. And last but not least, as with anything, Tigers are going to have to guard one-on-one. This is a team, they're not going to be overly complicated. It's going to be a lot of pick and roll. You're going to be able to get there at the end of the shot clock. Some of these late switches, the Tigers are going to have to keep these guards out, Faxon.
Yeah, and I think Clemson's going to win this game, as you were talking about. You said that you think they need to win this game to prove they're an NCAA tournament team. I think this will be a win for the Tigers, and I'm really excited to watch. I really am. And
then you have Purdue and Liberty. Now, Liberty was a good team last year. They lost a lot as well. I think they lost their top 5 scorers. It's going to be difficult.
Purdue lost a ton, too.
Yeah, Purdue lost a ton.
And their best player is injured currently.
Really?
Yeah.
Who's that now?
Man, I'm blanking on his name. It's not Williams, but they got a power forward, that 5-star recruit that blew out his knee, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's too bad. But Painter gets him done. I mean, Purdue, the Boilermakers are filled with tough players constantly. Every year he has those guys competing at a high level. They may be down, but some of these young core that they've been talking about up there in, where is it, West Lafayette, correct?
West Lafayette, Indiana.
Yeah, where they talk about up in West Lafayette. They're up in sophomores and juniors now. So they are young, but they're not going to be as good as they are last year.
And they also had, what's that guy? Was it Nogel Eastern transferred out as well, along with the guys that went to the NBA? They got like nobody returning that started last year. I think they lost all 5 starters.
Yeah.
So this is very winnable tournament for Clemson.
Yeah, this is something you need to set a precedent from the beginning. Look, not only this, we're going to talk about the games coming up every week, and we're going to talk about the games that Clemson already played. We're going to talk about basically the ACC as a whole all season long. In fact, I think we're getting close to finish. Do we have any questions tonight?
Well, I have, once again, some more personal questions for you that I could come up with. So you were talking about Maryland last week, and that really, because they're in the Big Ten now with Purdue, all those guys over there. Could you elaborate more on that Maryland game? I just wanted to hear, if you had any additional stories. I know you were talking about that Scott Van Pelt story last week, but especially towards the end of the game, what was your mindset? What could you possibly be thinking in a pressure situation like that towards the end of the game?
I used to make it even more simple. I went back to my high school last week. The good players keep the simple ones, the simple things simple, and they make the hard things look simple as well. And whenever pressure ramps up, you just got to rely on what you know. I was always more calm in those situations because everybody else was so riled up. One thing I do remember is Cliff Hammonds broke his wrist.
Really?
And it was on something where he blocked James Gist dunk attempt, which was one of the best blocks I've ever seen. And James Gist, I don't know if you remember him, but
yeah,
just an outstanding athlete. I think spent 15 years overseas or 10 years. I don't know how long it's been, but a pro, played for the Spurs for a while, and and Clifford just went up there and just took it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much you know about Cliff Hammonds, but that was somebody who was just different on every level.
Yeah.
He was married, he had 2 kids. As a senior, he was a double major in psychology and architecture, and then he's still playing. He was one of these guys, he would come to practice some days and he wouldn't sleep. He hadn't slept for a couple days. That was one of the most amazing human beings I've ever been around. And
wow.
Yeah, I'm hoping that he's doing okay. I haven't talked to him in a little while. I played against him in the D-League, but that was about it.
Yeah.
So.
And another question I had would be, I know you played up at Duke. It's a crazy environment up there. How much did the Cameron Crazies affect the game? And do you think that the fact that they will not be in attendance this year will help Clemson when they go up to Duke?
Yeah, it'll help just because you'll be able to communicate a little better. The Crazies didn't really bother you as much as the freaking heat. The heat doesn't.
That gym is hot. I've been in that gym.
The AC doesn't work up there.
That gym is hot.
It's just an old building. I'm not going to elaborate on it. It's just old, and of course, there's a lot of legendary players and people that have been there. But it's 100 degrees in that gym. It's hard to hear, hard to communicate. The rims are great.
It's stuffy in there too.
It's very stuffy,
yeah.
And it's
get all those people packed in there.
Super cool place. I could never say that Duke's not a great place. It's a really cool spot, but and no, the Crazies didn't bother you as much as the heat and the simple fact that it's just you can't communicate.
It's annoying.
It's annoying.
Yeah.
And they play that terrible song at the beginning of the games. Was it Better Off Alone or something like that? Like, it's horrible. Probably the worst song to go into a pregame. Being an opposing guy, I guess that's some kind of vibe up there, but that ain't it for me.
And as a Clemson player yourself, how did the fans affect your game, getting behind you guys, make a big shot, fans going wild? And do you think the limited fans will affect Clemson this year?
I don't think the limited fans will affect, because I think it'll actually help.
Really?
Because Brownell calls so many things and so many actions.
You can hear Brownell yelling from where I sit. I sit like 30 rows up, and you can hear him yelling out. So he's definitely, he's calling out sets and stuff, and you can hear it.
Yeah, so I think it's going to help, and it's going to make it easier to communicate that way. But, I mean, you can still get pretty loud with 2,000 people in it at Littlejohn. I mean, it's a pretty cool venue when it comes to that.
Especially with the renovations.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Is that all we got?
I think that's all we got.
We don't have any questions online. Nothing.
We did not get a ton of questions on Facebook tonight. You guys got to hop in next week.
Yeah, hop in, guys. Make sure 2 weeks from now. Thanksgiving.
2 weeks from now. Yes, 2 weeks from now.
Thank you, Faxon. I appreciate you as always. You're awesome, man. Bright young man right there, Faxon Childers. Hey guys, look. Since we're not going to be here next week, what I am going to do is I'm going to do about a 10-minute clip, give you guys an in-depth preview of Mississippi State, and I'm going to post that on Facebook and YouTube and things like that. So I think that'll give you something to look forward to, kind of like my Deep 3 keys to the game, but I'm going to do it visually, and I'm going to show some film, and I'm going to do a scouting report a little bit like a college team would. At least I'm going to try to blend it between what I did at Clemson and what I did as an assistant coach at Carson Newman. So I think that'll be fun for everybody. But long story short, if I don't talk to you then, have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you for tuning in, and go Tigers next week's game week.